initiate the sprinting. Before we do this, we have to initialize two variables. Local time limit, which in my case would be 0.3 seconds, which means player has to press W twice within 0.3 seconds to start this shift the sprint. And local last time pressed, this will start out as 0. And now to detect whether the player presses W twice within 0.3 seconds, we can write it like this. Create a new variable in here, local current time equals this, which is called a tick function. And this is basically a universal stopwatch that's been running since the 1st of January 1970, which means this is a variable that's constantly increasing and changing. So when we press W, we can get the current time, and we can check if current time subtract last time pressed, if this is less than or equal to our time limit, then our sprinting has been initiated. Began. And make sure outside of this if statement we update the new time, so our last time pressed will now be equal to our current time. So now if we test this, yeah, I'm pressing W, shift, press W, and the sprinting begins. If I double tap W, but if I press it slowly, 1, 2, it won't start. Press it again, twice, very quickly. This is how we detect when the player double taps W, and we can start the shift to sprint right here. I'm just going to make one small adjustment. I'm going to set up a separate input check for W, because I want the player to be able to sprint even if they're not on shift lock. So I'm going to grab all this code here. I'm going to put this back to normal. Then paste all this code here. So this way the player can still sprint even if they're not shift locking. See, sprinting began. If I shift lock, still detect I'm sprinting right here. We're going to initialize two Boolean values up here. Local can sprint equals true. We're not going to do anything with this value for now. This is so we can disable the player's ability to sprint. Like for example, if they get stunned or if they're sliding, you don't want them to start sprinting, or even if they're dodging, you don't want them sprinting while they're dodging. Local is sprinting, so we can track when the player is sprinting or not. This will be useful for later. We'll have this as false for now. And what we can do here, let's organize our code a bit. Double tap W for sprinting. So that should be under here, because under this if statement is when the player actually starts running. So when we start running, we can do is sprinting is true. Then obviously they'll stop sprinting when we let go of W. So we can copy the statement into the input ended. When we let go of W, is sprinting becomes false. And if this is the code that begins our sprint here, you can also check for another value. For example, and can sprint. If the player can sprint, it will initiate the sprinting. Also, and not is running. You don't want them, and is sprinting. You don't want them beginning a sprint if they're already sprinting, just for logical reasons. Let's actually initialize our sprinting animation now. So we can go on back under replicate storage animations, create a new animation under here. Call this sprint anim. Put your respective sprinting animation under this. Put this one here. And then you want to create a variable for this in our script. Create another one here. Sprint anim. I'm sorry for the background noise from before. Parents are testing out a new doorbell. Animations. We'll change this to sprint anim. There we are. And now the player double taps W for sprinting. We can start the sprint animation. So sprint animation play with our local delay animation delay variable. And we want to stop this animation when the player lets go of W. You can put it under here as well. For example, if is sprinting, then you can stop the animation. And make sure you do this check before you initialize if sprinting is false. You only want to stop the animation when they're sprinting. So if we run this, it should work. As you can see, we're sprinting. Obviously, we haven't changed our movement speed, and it stops when we let go of W. Even if we shift lock, it's still sprinting. Let's change our movement speed as well. So hum.walk speed, we'll change this to, I don't know, 30. We'll change this back to 16, which is the default walk speed. Now this will emulate sprinting. We'll go a bit too fast, but yeah, it works for now. A small little thing I'm going to do is, instead of changing the humanoid walk speed every time the player sprints, I'm going to create a function for this. Local begin sprinting. Local function begin sprinting. And then we're going to pass in the values here. So hum.walk speed is true. No, the walk speed is default. And then is sprinting will come true in here as well. The walk speed. We'll create another function. Stop sprinting. Turn this back to 16. This will be false. We'll just use these functions to declare when the player is sprinting. Oh yeah, and the animation. So sprint animation play. Sprint animation stop. And we'll use these functions instead. Begin sprinting and stop sprinting in here. And we can remove this because it already initializes if sprinting is false up here. And it should work the same way. See, it still works. Oops, I forgot to put the animation delay in them. Oh, just quickly do that. Animation delay. Animation delay. Make it more smooth. Now a character can sprint. We're also going to make two extra functions called pause sprinting and resume sprinting. And the purpose of these functions is that we can stop the player from sprinting. We can also pause the player from sprinting. So this Boolean value, we'll still keep this as wherever it was. Just do resume sprinting. So it should be like this. Be almost the exact same as, sorry, begin sprinting here. However, it would do a conditional check. For example, if is sprinting, then this will basically mean our sprint has resumed. And then we'll make another function for simplicity. Actually, no, this can be one whole function. Else, run this. And the purpose of this is that if, for example, we do a roll animation or a slide, we can check if the player is still sprinting. Like, for example, if they're holding double tap W. And once the rolling or sliding has stopped, we can run this function and it will continue the player's sprint. That way we don't have to double tap W again, which can be a bit of a nuisance for the player later. We're going to be using this function later. Now, regarding the sound effects for our footsteps and stuff, I've already created a script for it. There's a link to it in the description, and and you can download it as a model into your toolbox. It should look like this, called floor material scripts. You open this, B1 script, and all you have to do is put this under starter character scripts right here, and rename this, I don't know, floor material script. And if we play the game here, it will play our sound effect here. And we can test around separate floor materials. I'll go cut to that. Change this material to, I don't know, wood. We'll scale this up a little bit. We'll make another copy of it right here. Change this material to snow or something. So that's snow. Try grass. And then, I don't know, sand. And in the script, this one here, there's tons of different sound effects. It's coded in a way so that it detects what the material is under the player's foot. Humanoid get get property change signal, and they can detect the floor material changing from the humanoid, and they can change the sound effect of our running sound, because when we enter the game, there's this running sound here that's initialized with our humanoid root part, and it can detect the floor material changes, like we're going to touch wood. Changes. If you get an error like this is totally fine. What this means is that our game has issues loading this ID because it doesn't recognize it. And there's a very simple fix to this. All you can do is create a new sound effect anywhere. I prefer to do it in sound service. This is going to be temporary. We're going to delete that later. Then what you can do is copy this, paste it into the sound ID, and your game will get its own instance of the sound. And you can like delete this later. We'll keep this here for now, but it's not going to do anything. Now, if you walk on this, it creates the snow sound effect. And now I've coded this in a way. This is I'm going to say this right now. This script is outsourced. I got this from another YouTuber, but I've made a few changes. Specifically this part. You can adjust the volume of every specific sound effect, and you can change the playback speed. For example, if I want, I don't know, 0.5 and a lower volume, like 5, you can adjust it. So the grass was this one. See, it's slow. And this is just to, I made it like this so you can adjust it. For example, our animations aren't going to be the same. Like your walk speed could be slightly faster than mine, or hell, your walk animation entirely could be a bit quicker. So this is for flexibility purposes. And obviously, when you're experimenting with different sounds, you get separate sound effects in the toolbox. Like, I don't know, you can write step, and there's tons of sound effects you can mess around with. Ideally, you only want one step sound effect, like something like that. And you can copy these IDs and like paste them here and whatever. You can mess around with this. Obviously, you might need to play around with the sound effects, adjust their speed and volume however you like. And this part of our tutorial is done. Now, once you're done adjusting your settings for your floor material scripts, like the sound and the playback speed, let's talk about the camera bobbing now. Now, the camera bobbing consists of two scripts, a camera sway script, and the camera bobbing, it consists of two separate parts. One is the camera sway, which is handled by a script. which was created by this person out here, which was created by this YouTuber here. This is an outsourced script, so I'm going to credit them. I did not make that. I just added it to my game because I thought it looked cool. Now the second part of the camera bobbing is when they start sprinting and stuff like that. This is also from the YouTuber, but I decided to include this part of the script in our actual local script here. We're going to add it whenever the player initiates a sprinting activity like this. So let's start coding that. But first, let's talk about the camera sway. I've created a model which technically belongs to this YouTuber here. But yeah, you can click on the link in the description and you can get this. Just want to put this under starter character scripts again. And what this do is that when we rotate our camera by holding right click, you can see there's a bit of a kind of a sway effect. And you can adjust how much of the sway you want. Like, for example, you can mess around with these values, like change that to 20, increase how much sway and how sensitive it is. I like it the way it is now, the number 3. Obviously you can adjust this however you like. Now for the actual camera bobbing when we sprint, I'm going to start coding it in here. Now for the camera bobbing, we're going to create a separate function for this. Call function camera bobbing. And we'll pass in a boolean value. If this boolean is true, then we'll start the camera bobbing. So if bool, then just follow along the script here. Just copy it down. We're going to create a render connection. Now, before we start running this code, we have to make sure we end this render connection. Oh wait, no, our code already handles it. It checks if there's another render connection. The point of this is to track our render step here. If one already exists, it disconnects the previous one, so we're not setting up 100 event listeners every time we start sprinting. So if we put camera bobbing under the begin sprinting function, this should work. And it does not work. Why does it not work? Oh, silly me. Camera bobbing was also passing the value true in here. And now this should work. Oops, another typo here. Should be lerp, not lerb. Here you are. And now our camera bobbing works. So when we sprint, camera's bobbing around. So yeah, credit to this creator. I actually did not make this script. It's referenced from this creator. You can go check out his video here. You explain more in depth about how this works. But this will handle the camera bobbing. Every time we run our function, camera bobbing, passing the value true. And we don't even need a boolean value here. Let me just remove that. Just me being paranoid. Put this over here. Yeah, we don't really need a boolean value because each time we run the camera bobbing, it turns off any previous connection. Oh no, forget what I said. We do need a boolean value. Let's pass in an else value here. Else, if you pass in false, if this boolean value is false, then we're gonna Actually, I'll tell you what would be easier. Oops. I'll tell you what would be easier. Instead of putting an else statement, we can just say, if not bool, then return end. So if we pass in a false value here, for example, this is begin sprint. When you stop sprinting, we're going to run this function again, pass in false. And this will stop the camera bobbing, so when you walk, turn it back to normal. Oops. Made the same mistake. Should be lap. There you are. Returns us back to normal. Camera's bobbing again. Returns us back to normal. And if you want to control the intensity of how much this shakes, you can mess around with these three values here. 1, 2, 3. You can increase it or decrease it. I like mine the way it is. You can also increase this value too. I like the way it is right now, so I'm not going to mess around with any of these values. So yeah, that's the camera bobbing completed. Oh yeah, something I forgot to change was some of the default Roblox sound effects. So what I mean by this is stuff like the jumping sound effect. It sounds like this. And there's other sound effects like the falling sound effect that you might want to change. And the sound effect is actually a player script. So rather than going under our character, to go under our player, then go under player scripts. You can see this script here called RBX character sounds. Copy it, then paste it under starter player scripts. So this will initialize our own version of the script. Now under here, you can change these sound IDs to be whatever you want. And now for this code, if you want to add our own, for example, jumping sounds, what we can do is change this RBX asset ID, then insert whatever sound that ID you find. For example, let's go quickly find one. I found this sound, so I'm going to use this. It sounds like this. I'm just going to put this here, and now you'll notice when we play our game now, we'll use, wait 1 second. That'll work. There we are. Now we have our own jumping sound effect. You can delete this now because Roblox Studio remember our sound. And you can also change other sound effects like the falling one, dying sound effect. You can change the dying sound effect back to the Roblox oof if you want.